Hello. Okay, for those of you returning to the channel, welcome back. And for those of you that are new here, that have just stumbled upon this video, then thank you for joining me. And if you find yourself wanting to stick around to follow just some random Welsh geek ramble on about film and TV, then please hit that subscribe button. It will mean an awful lot to me. And yeah, welcome to my spoiler-free review of The End of Oak Street, directed by David Robert Mitchell. I have been incredibly excited for this movie. The main reason being, it has dinosaurs in it. And also you've got Ewan McGregor.
Hello there.
And Anne Hathaway starring you. And so yeah, I've been incredibly excited for this movie. And from the glimpses that we have been getting of it from within the trailers, it looked to be this good old-fashioned traditional romp. This was also written by David Robert Mitchell. I've not seen any of his previous movies, but I have heard positive things about It Follows, but I've just not got around to watching it yet. So yeah, The End of Oak Street. The story follows the Platt family, whose quiet suburban life is upended when a cosmic event hurls their 1980s neighbourhood into a prehistoric world filled with deadly dinosaurs. Forced to set aside personal conflicts, they must rely on each other to survive in this hostile environment in which they find themselves in. So, I absolutely dug the look of this movie, the cinematography, the visuals, the way in which this film is shot, as well as the performances and the writing. Because what these elements do, I felt, for me personally, is beautifully capture sort of the essence and the spirit of 80s Spielberg movies, or just, you know, Amblin Entertainment movies, as well as a dash of 50s sci-fi. You know, it kind of had a 50s B-movie atomic science fiction feel to it, or a 50s B-movie monster movie where you have that monster invading a small American town. It had that vibe. It had that essence about it, and I absolutely dug. So I dug it. I really I think they did a wonderful job at really capturing sort of those eras, those specific eras of filmmaking and movies. And it was an absolute joy to sort of witness come to life within the frame. And it's also reflected in the writing. I felt like it was really kind of reflected within the script. Some people feel like the writing and the dialogue is pretty bad here, as well as, you know, the delivery of it. It is quite camp, it can be quite silly, but I felt like the writing beautifully captures what I felt like they were honouring you with this movie and with this story, and that is those kind of 50s B-movie sci-fi films, as well as those 80s Spielberg and just, you know, the Amblin Entertainment movies from the 80s. And I do feel like that is beautifully captured here, sort of within the performances from all of the cast, especially Ewan McGregor. I think he does a wonderful job here.
Hello there.
And it's captured in the writing, it's captured in the dialogue and in how they deliver sort of the dialogue. And I really dug it. And I absolutely admired how they used the camera throughout this movie. I felt like it added so much tension to this experience. It really sort of elevated the horror when it comes to how they did use the camera. And they're very kind of traditional techniques. Some are more simpler than others. For example, you know, the more simple shots are just sort of like a panning shot, where a lot of the time you would just get this stationary shot and it sort of pans around this neighborhood. It does such an effective job at sort of really immersing you into the setting and into the horror and into the drama of it all, as well as perhaps the more complex but still traditional shots like a two shot. And that is when you have a shot that features both a foreground and background subject sharply in focus at different depths, you know, with two characters, for example. And there's a lot of those moments throughout this experience, and I just loved it. I just love these sort of, you know, those certain moments where you have these two characters and it's done in a way that is very traditional but adds so much to the immersion of the experience, and again, it's just one of those aspects that kind of really does a beautiful job at capturing sort of the essence and aesthetic of movies that I feel like they were attempting to honour here and pay homage to, like those 50s sci-fi B movies, as well as movies, fantasy and sci-fi movies from the 80s, whether it be Amblin Entertainment or Spielberg. And yeah, just simply beautiful. And yes, you've got dinosaurs. You know, I've always been a bit of a dinosaur nut ever since I watched Jurassic Park for the first time, and, you know, growing up with movies like with The Land Before Time, for example, which I absolutely adore. You know, I'm a massive dinosaur nut, and, you know, it was really exciting to sort of see these dinosaurs be brought to life in a way that just, it felt different. And it felt different for me. It felt refreshingly different due to how they're using sort of this high sci-fi concept to tell a very real human story. That is the drama between our two main characters that are played by Anne Hathaway and Ewan McGregor here. And I just love how they use sort of that science fiction aspect of its story as a conduit, really, for us to explore this kind of very real human drama between these characters. And that is something that I really appreciated about this experience, as well as the big difference between The End of Oak Street and Jurassic Park is, with Jurassic Park, it was more about the awe and wonder of it all, the magic of having these creatures being brought to life again, you know, and being brought to life within the frame. And yes, you've got those horror elements that Spielberg is a master at just sort of bringing to life and still getting away with a PG film, but terrorising you at the same time. I mean, he's a fucking master at it.
Ooh, that's how it always starts. But then later there's running and screaming.
But you, with The End of Oak Street, it's less about the awe and wonder of it all, and it's more about the horror of all of a sudden realizing that you're in the past with these prehistoric creatures. And the way they bring sort of that horror element to life here was amazing. Like, I had so much fun, you know, being with these characters in this neighborhood as, you know, these dinosaurs start roaming through the streets. And it, you know, in moments it's quite intense. Like, it's a 12A movie, and I do think, you know, kids are going to find certain moments in this film to be quite intense. I know that if I'd watched it as a kid, it was going to be creepy. And, you know, they achieve that because of all the other elements that I've already mentioned, wherever it be sort of how these shots are framed, how the movie is shot. And these moments of terror are also brought to life through a fantastic score by Michael Giacchino. He also just composed the score for Spider-Man Brand New Day, and it's one of my favourite Spider-Man scores, and he knocks it out of the park here again. There are so many aspects to the score that I admired, because they did so much to kind of really elevate sort of the tension and the horror and the excitement and thrill within certain moments throughout this experience. And it just had me grinning, it had me smiling, because it did, among all the other aspects that I've already mentioned, among all these sort of other elements, whatever it be, the performances, the writing, sort of how they use the camera, to the score, it just really took me back. And I know I say this a lot these days recently, but they do a wonderful job here at, again, sort of taking me back to a certain time in my life, at discovering movies for the first time. And I just think they do a wonderful job through all those different elements, whether it be the score or the writing or the cinematography, in really capturing a certain era of filmmaking. And I think they do, for the most part, they do a wonderful job at bringing it to life. There's also a kind of dash of weird, quirky humour running throughout this film that really worked for me, because it sort of sticks his head out in certain moments, and there are genuine moments that kind of really made me chuckle. There's one goofy moment, I won't say what it is, of course, because this is spoiler free, and I think for some people it might just be a bit too silly, but for me it worked because it was also doing something different. It wasn't giving you sort of more of the same of, you know, running away, screaming and all of that. It was just something incredibly silly, stupid, and it still worked for me, but I don't think it's going to work for everyone. So when it comes to the humour, I don't think it might hit the mark for everyone. But for me, it was just another one of those sort of tones, or another aspect within this experience that worked. You know, another sort of shade of this movie that kind of just added to the overall experience. With all that being said, this wasn't a perfect movie. I mean, I loved so much about it. But overall, it wasn't quite perfect, and I did have issues with it, but that was mainly sort of within the last 45 minutes of the movie. Now, for me personally, I felt like the strongest portion of this movie is the first 30 to 45 minutes, especially the setup of its main characters, this family, and just how they introduce us into this family dynamic and sort of the drama that's going on within it, especially with the husband and wife played wonderfully by Anne Hathaway and Ewan McGregor. Like I've already mentioned, you know, I feel Ewan McGregor is wonderful here. He's pure joy to watch, but Anne Hathaway is incredible within this film, and I really liked how their characters were set up. They've got quite a compelling story. You know, it's a very real human story here. Sort of thematically, they are exploring very real human themes that I think many people are going to relate to, and it's what really drives this movie. And that is sort of one of the aspects I just found myself really admiring, is that big beating heart within this kind of very high sci-fi concept here. For me, it's at its strongest in the first half of this film. It kind of starts to unravel a little bit. It starts to feel a little messy and clunky as we sort of get into that final 45 minutes of the movie. And I felt like we were missing moments. I feel like we were missing scenes between certain characters. Like, it's a little obvious at times. At first, it didn't really bug me, but then it becomes a little more evident as the movie sort of progresses into its third act and towards its conclusion. I just felt like we were missing moments of character, which I found to be quite frustrating because, like I said, there was so much that I appreciated and admired about this experience, and they were doing such a solid, great job, you know, within that first half of the film, you know, the first act and going into the second act. It was incredibly compelling, and I always remained immersed. I was always there with these characters because, like I said, they are beautifully brought to life here by all of the cast. Even the kids within this film are great, and I am there with them. I am emotionally involved. But how its narrative is structured in that final half and how it plays out, it's quite clunky and awkward. Yet, I was still having a good time. I was still having fun. This was still a thrilling experience. But it felt awkward. It felt a little clunky, and that was kind of like an itch you can't quite reach, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it at first. But coming away from it and sort of reflecting on it, I do feel like maybe there were portions of this movie missing. And I think it clocks in at around 1 hour and 39 minutes. And this was one of those experiences for me. I could be in a minority here, I don't know, but this is one of those experiences where I felt like it could have benefited from an additional 10 to 20 minutes to kind of allow sort of that heartbeat, that sort of emotional current that is beautifully set up here, to sort of remain present throughout the entire duration, because they do kind of lose focus on that heart, on that drama, and on the story of these characters as the film progresses. There are some moments where it reminds you, like this is one moment with a stampede. It's in the trailers, and it involves the husband and the wife, Anne Hathaway and Ewan McGregor's characters. And so they're escaping this stampede, and there is a moment between these two characters that hits hard emotionally, and it's like, oh, you know, it's like, fuck yeah, you know, we're on this journey here with these characters, with this sort of relationship between these two characters. But at that point in the story, it kind of it's sort of lost focus of it. And I think a lot of that is due to sort of that messiness that I felt like was there within the last half of this film. At the same time, I still couldn't help but just have... This movie was just pure joy. There is so much I admired about it. Yes, it has problems. I had problems with it. But there are so many moments that kind of evoked an array of emotions from me, whether that be sadness or horror, or, you know, just the way in which they build tension throughout this film is incredible, as well as that kind of the dash of humour that I think works beautifully sort of within this movie. You know, some of the shots in just how they kind of just pan and follow our characters running away from a dinosaur, and just what is going on within the frame. You know, there is so much sometimes going on within the frame that it's scary as well as funny, and it's just, yeah, there is just so much to enjoy with this experience. At the same time, I kind of come out of it feeling just a tad frustrated, but at the same time, I was still thrilled. You know, it reminded me why I fell in love with film. There's so many of those experiences this year that we've been getting where it's really reminded me, you know, why I fell in love with film in the first place. And this is another one of those movies that did that for me. With all its flaws, with all the issues I had, The End of Oak Street was pure joy. That big beating heart, that emotional current that is this drama, this family drama, and this relationship between husband and wife, you know, it's always present, but it just becomes faint and it loses focus of it at times. And there are moments then that you're reminded of sort of the core, kind of that core reason to why, well, I did anyway, why I found myself compelled by this experience. And so, yeah, look, I highly recommend The End of Oak Street. It's a wonderful movie. It is, you know, I don't think everyone's going to agree with me. I still had so much fun with it. It's a fun, thrilling experience. There's so much I admired about it. It does have its flaws, but I always remained immersed. And, you know, it's still quite a compelling experience. It does get a little clunky. It does get a little bit awkward, especially within its third act. But overall, yeah, I really, really like this movie. And so, enough rambling from me. They are my thoughts on The End of Oak Street, and I will be giving The End of Oak Street they are my thoughts on The End of Oak Street. But what do you guys think? Have you seen it yet? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you agree or disagree with anything I've said? Then please let me know in the comments below and let's get a discussion going. And if you've made it this far into the video, then thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And remember, if you want to watch future movie reviews from just some random Welsh geek rambling on and pronouncing things incorrectly and all of that, then please hit that subscribe button. It will mean so much to me and it will help the channel out. And just a big thank you to everyone that has been supporting the channel, whatever it be, liking, commenting, subscribing. It means the world to me. I have just launched a new series called My VHS Collection, where I'm going to be sharing my VHS collection with you all. I'm really looking forward to doing those. I just released my first video. My approach to those videos was for them to be shorter. Like, initially they were going to be just shorts, but because of who I am and I like to ramble, I just couldn't get them sort of within that 3-minute mark. So they've ended up just being a video, like a 6 or 7 minute video at the minute. But that's one of those things I just don't want to take out of these videos, and that is who I am. I want these videos to sort of capture, you know, my personality. I don't want to kind of water it down or sort of structure it in a way where I'm just sort of reading from a script or something, or reading from notes. I want these videos to kind of really capture who I am as a person, and I can't even get that condensed down into 3 minutes. But yeah, anyway, they are a new series of videos that I'm looking forward to sharing with you all. I have built quite a VHS collection at the minute, and I will also be planning a live video that I'm going to be doing once a month, and it's going to be at midnight here UK time, and that's something that's going to be in the pipeline, and I will announce the first date very soon. But yeah, look, another thank you to everyone that has supported the channel, whether it be liking, commenting, subscribing. It means the world to me. And so yeah, that's it from me for now, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'll be catching you guys soon.